I, female 32, gave birth to my son 5 weeks ago. My husband's mom has been camping in the living room ever since, inviting people over, making a mess in the house, etc. I said nothing because if I opened my mouth, my husband would start scolding me, saying his mom was there to help and I should be grateful. So what I did was ignore her and focus on my son. I handle feeding, diaper change, cleaning, and wiping. I only get a few hours of sleep, so my husband's mom isn't really helping with the baby. But I thought to myself, well, at least she cooks for us. Last night I was in the bedroom, breastfeeding my son. I knew I was late for dinner, but I thought my husband and his mom had saved a plate for me. Once I got done with my son, I walked out of the room and saw my husband and his mom sitting watching TV. I asked about dinner, and my husband said it was probably on the stove. As I walked towards the kitchen, his mom loudly said she hadn't saved me any food. I was absolutely shocked. I asked her why, and she simply said, well, we didn't see you at the dinner table, so I thought you weren't hungry. Finally, I lost it and yelled that I was feeding my son. Of course I was hungry, and I was actually starving. She shrugged her shoulders and said that it wasn't her fault I didn't show up for dinner, but she knew darn well that I was with my son and hadn't eaten a thing in hours. My husband asked me not to raise my voice at his mom, but I told him that he saw what happened and didn't think about me being hungry and needing food. He lashed out, asking what I wanted him to do, and I said, I don't know, maybe save some food for me. She defended him, saying it was selfish of me to scold him for eating his dinner after working long hours at the department. An argument ensued, and I went inside the bathroom, packed a small bag for my son and me, and called my brother to come take me to my mom's house. My husband blew up at me as I was making my way out. We argued at the door, and he told me that what I was doing was uncalled for and childish. I told him I couldn't take his mom anymore. He said I should be ashamed of myself for talking about her like that after she'd put her life on pause so she could help me out. My brother came and I got into the car and left. He picked some food for me on the way, and I ate like a hungry bear. My husband never stopped calling though. In his last text, he called me nuts and demanded I return today. But I said that I missed my mom, that I liked it here in her clean home with her healthy food, and would like to stay for a while. He's lost it and got his family involved, accusing me of keeping his son away from him and punishing him over food. Not the idiot. How exactly is your mother-in-law's cooking helping if she doesn't even cook enough for all three of you? Tell him you'll return when his mother's gone, and you get a true apology from both of them. Otherwise, leave your son with your mother and go get the rest of your things. A man that doesn't even ensure that his breastfeeding wife eats isn't worth staying with. What a piece of work. Both of them. I can't imagine a woman alive who isn't aware that a breastfeeding new mother would be hungry. You weren't at dinner? What the heck? I would be throwing crap at that point. Get the support you and your child need. This made my blood boil. You have a husband problem, not a mother-in-law problem. You married a mama's boy. The last thing you need after having a baby is an inconsiderate house guest that makes a mess and invites people over. Oh, but at least she cooks for us. She cooks for her son. His mom is taking care of her baby. Nothing she's done has been a benefit to you. Stay where you are. It would help if you had support right now, not someone stressing you out. OP, unfortunately, it seems like he doesn't want to be a parent and a partner. He wants to be coddled like a child. I would consider all your options because at this point, he's neglecting you and his child. And if this behavior doesn't change, it will become abusive. The fact that he doesn't see it is a huge red flag. He's not being supportive and is actively undermining you. I'd seriously divorce him. He can work and pay child support since he feels that's all he needs to contribute. My fiance and I just got engaged a few months ago, and she's been trying to fit into the house and make some new decorating changes. I talked to my kids before this, and they said that they were fine with it as long as it's not their room or their bathrooms. I let my kids do whatever they wanted with their space. Like, before we moved into this house, they could paint how they wanted. They picked out their beds, decorations, rooms, all of it. My kids enjoy getting to decorate the room. I told my fiance this was off limits. My fiance, however, has been trying to fix their rooms and gets mad when I say no. Her argument is that they're getting older, they should have more mature bathrooms, and it's time for them to have a remodel, especially my youngest, because it looks like a 6-year-old's room and it needs to start evolving into maturity. Every time I say no to her, that she can't redecorate or try to persuade my children into redecorating their room, she gets mad and says I'm coming in between her and her being a member of this family and a new person in this house. It's 2 spaces. I don't think this should be this difficult. I walked in on her and my daughter. My fiance was talking to my daughter about how unfair it is not to be able to feel welcomed in this house, and she needs to feel like she's included in the decorating process with them. It's very hurtful for them to leave her out of their rooms and lives by doing this, and she's so shocked by the amount of insensitivity by all of us in this process. I told her not to talk to my daughter like that ever again. We've talked about this once, and it's not going to change. She does not get to make any decisions about their rooms, and neither do I. Nobody does. They do because it's their room and their space. I said that this would never happen again, and if I catch her trying to manipulate them like this again, we're going to have to make some changes, because this isn't going to be the norm. Now she's saying that the house being different from their rooms is triggering her OCD, and it makes her very uncomfortable for it to be 2 different things and styles than the rest, and it's making her upset and uncomfortable. First of all, she doesn't have OCD, at least not that I've ever heard of. No medication or anything. Second of all, close the door. Problem solved, you don't have to see it. All I said was, then leave. If this is making her so uncomfortable, she's welcome to leave. But she's not remodeling their whole room for her aesthetic. And if she truly has OCD, she should seek a therapist like yesterday and get on some medication. She got furious at me telling her to leave and got defensive from me saying that she needed to go to therapy. It wasn't clinical OCD, and now she isn't speaking to me. Well, I told a few people about this. Some say that this was harsh, and others say that I was right. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Why does she feel the need to feel included by remodeling the kids' rooms? Is she living in them? I'm over 50, and our house is full of Lego and gamer stuff. I would love for her to come over here and tell me I'm not mature enough for her. LOL. Your fiance is controlling, manipulative, and selfish. Don't marry this woman, or you and your kids will be miserable. I say good riddance to bad rubbish. Exactly. OP, see all the red flags that are flying around you? Time to make an exit plan, because there's no chance this marriage will work. Your kids are and should be a priority, and this kind of controlling and selfish behavior from your fiance will not stop suddenly. She showed you who she is, and you better believe her before it's too late. Your fiance hasn't passed the test. If she's this bad now, just imagine how manipulative and controlling she'll try to become after you've tied the knot and she feels even more secure. Please kick her out and break up. Your kids don't deserve to be subjected to someone like this. You deserve better too. Right? Who talks to a child like that over a room? Something is very wrong with this woman. Can't she handle 2 rooms she likely never enters, not having her aesthetic? She's seeing how far she can push you and the kids. My friend, 25 female, is constantly late for everything. Be it work-related or fun activities, she will always be at least 15 to 20 minutes late. Unfortunately, she doesn't have a car, so I, 25 male, will often pick her up from her house. I work at university, and she's a PhD student there, and her place is on the way for me. The last time I offered her a ride to work, she ended up being 20 minutes late after I'd already arrived at her place. Because of that, I ended up being late for work. She's always very apologetic about her lateness, but never changes. This week, she was supposed to give a seminar at the university, which is a crucial part of her PhD program. She asked me if I could give her a ride to work that day. I told her sure, but I was picking her up at 8 a.m., and she must be there precisely at 8 a.m., not a minute later. She chuckled, but I told her I wasn't joking, and she promised she would be there. The morning of her seminar, I drove to her place and got there at 7:55 and texted her that I was there, and she told me she'd be out in just a minute. At 8 o'clock, there was no indication that she'd be coming out, and she didn't text anything. So at 8:01, I drove off. At around 8:20, she called me, asking where I was. I told her I was at work and that I wasn't joking when I told her that she had to be ready that minute. She started screaming and crying over the phone and told me that she was having a hard time that morning and couldn't be ready at 8 a.m. She then begged me to come back to pick her up as her seminar was at 9 a.m. and she needed to be at the school before then. I could have done it quickly enough to pick her up and drop her off without affecting my work, but I decided I didn't want to do that and told her I wouldn't. She was crying and hyperventilating at that point. She said she'd promised never to be late for anything else again and reemphasized that this seminar was crucial for her PhD and that she absolutely could not miss it without severe consequences. I responded, "Oh well," and hung up. I then went about my day at work normally. I feel like I could have gone back and picked her up in this scenario, since it wouldn't have been detrimental to me. And at the same time, this was something very important to her. On the other hand, I feel like this should be a wake-up call for her chronic lateness. So am I the idiot here? Not the idiot. You warned her. She also had 40 minutes to make other arrangements, even after all her procrastination. Why didn't she just call an Uber or a taxi? If it was that important, she had other options available to her. She probably has a super low score on Uber for being late. Clearly, she showed up at 8:20 and expected OP to wait for her, like her chauffeur, idly. It is so disrespectful of OP's time. Frankly, I'd be okay with not having this friend. Doing something like this is the only way some people will ever learn. Maybe next time she has to be somewhere, she'll be more respectful of other people's time. Agree. And I will die on this hill. Chronically late people drive me insane. It's considerate as heck. And when you finally put your foot down and have boundaries, you're the idiot instead of them. Nope. We have 6 boys, and son number 4, Ben, is a tween. I found it hard to connect with him because he prefers his mom, and he's not a physical kid. I'm a physical dad. I love wrestling, snuggling, and playing with my kids, even the oldest 2 teens. Ben has been experiencing social problems at school. He's totally lost since the beginning of the year. He has no friends. Usually, his friends were family friends, but for some reason they don't hang out with him at school and have given him a hard time. We had him go to a therapist, and to be honest, she rubbed me the wrong way from the start. I held firm on trusting the process. After a few weeks, she wanted to meet with my wife and me. She said that our son said that his mom makes him happy and how much he loves his brothers and pets. She said that my son feels like I don't like him. I admitted that I sensed a disconnect from him. I don't ignore him. I put a lot of effort into bonding with him. I tell him every day that I love him. What more can I do? Then silence. I said to the therapist, "Do you have something to add?" Yes, with a bit of sarcasm. That set her off with, "You know what? You need to take this seriously." I clapped back that at $200 a session, I'm taking it very seriously. Plus, the nightmare of dealing with the insurance just to apply it against our deductible. She kept interrupting me and raised her voice to me. I asked her if she thought I didn't care about my son, and she kept deflecting. The last thing I said was I couldn't work with someone who doesn't think I don't care about my own kid. I bruised her ego because she didn't have anything to add and called her out on it. I told my wife we needed to find someone else who was more diplomatic and less emotional. She wasn't happy about it. And yes, he's seeing another therapist. He holds us all accountable and does not raise their voice at me. So, am I the idiot? So your son tells this therapist that he thinks you don't like him, and your response is, "What more can I do?" It sounds like your ego's the one that's bruised. The therapist called you out on your lazy attitude about your son, and the fact that he won't bond with you the way you want him to. You are the idiot, OP. You're trying to engage with your son by your own standards, rather than by trying to adopt a way your son could be receptive. The icing on the cake is yanking your son out of a trust relationship with that therapist and hurling him into therapy with a male, all the while knowing full well that your son already has trust issues in male-male relationships, just so you could feel more comfortable. You cannot be an effective advocate for your son if you're putting your feelings first. The therapist is for the son, not for the father. Period. So, do you have a history of confrontation with women? Your comments sound a bit misogynistic. And if this man is a good therapist, he will do the same thing. He might not raise his voice at you, but he will similarly confront you. He found a man who's less emotional. His way of saying that he cares about his son's therapy is that he's paying $200 and must deal with insurance. He got incredibly aggressive with her, and then she raised her voice at him because her ego was bruised. But it sounded like he was starting to yell at her, and she was just trying to be heard over him. He's not a bit misogynistic. He's totally misogynistic. My 34 male, father 56, just had a baby with his girlfriend. I get along really well with his girlfriend. She's cool and laid back and babysits my daughter, tween, for me. So this has nothing to do with me not liking his girlfriend or my new baby sister. But of course I love my new sister. Here's the problem. My dad insists on calling my new baby, emphasis on baby, sister, my daughter's aunt, and she doesn't like it. She's at that age where she's starting to want to feel grown up, and she hates when my dad says stuff like, "Say hi to Auntie, sister's name." I've asked my dad repeatedly not to do this in front of my daughter. I also asked his girlfriend, and she didn't have a problem with it. My dad insists that his daughter is my daughter's aunt. Technically true, so that's how he needs to refer to her, as my daughter, and how my daughter should refer to her even. We've been fighting about it, and he eventually snapped at me and told me that I couldn't tell him what to call his own baby. I mean, yes, technically, but come on, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I think your daughter understands that the baby is technically your aunt, but it's just bizarre to try to enforce this in your daily life. Your dad's being very weird here. Why does he feel the need to make a kid call an infant an aunt? That's sad. He's 56 with a newborn, so he has bigger issues, to be honest. Just gonna offer a compromise. Would you and your daughter feel comfortable referring to her as Bad Auntie? Because I got a bad feeling that your sister's been neglecting her aunt's duties, like Christmas gifts or showing up for your daughter's birthdays, etc. Also, is her aunt very demanding, insisting on diaper changes and nap times? I don't mean to be rude, but she isn't a very good aunt from the sounds of things. Yeah, boycott Auntie. This is hilarious to me, but I can guarantee some people, Dad, aren't going to get the sarcasm, LOL. Your dad is probably being weird about this because he wants the world and you to affirm that there's nothing at all odd about him having a new baby with a girlfriend who's probably close to your age. Or he's just a jerk who doesn't care about your daughter.